You, I don't wanna look like you, look like chap in the bando, I don't wanna look like you. Chap in the bando, I don't wanna look like
say like I identify as Nigerian just because that's where I'm from, like quite simply. It's my parents are from, it's my grandparents are from. But funnily enough, to be honest with you, I find identifying as a Nigerian quite tricky. As someone who's grown up in the UK, if I want to find out anything about where I'm from in terms of Nigeria is not a useful frame of reference. Looking at, oh, I'm Yoruba, okay, that's a good frame of reference, or where I'm from as a Yoruba person. Of course I do identify as a Nigerian, but it's more like in terms of historically, I wouldn't necessarily say I identify as a Nigerian just because there's not really a history or that much of a history to it. The reason why I say that, to be honest, is just because literally all I know about is what Yoruba people are like. I just came back from Nigeria and I went to Ogunlusi for the first time, and then when I was there, like I was seeing all these emirs, and it was the first time I seen people with turbans. Now for people in the north, that's what it means to be Nigerian. That's what Nigerians look like, that's how they dress. As someone from the south, like that doesn't identify as Nigerian to me. So that's what I kind of meant by it's weird to say Nigerian, because I really don't know what Nigeria is like. I just know what Yoruba land is like. As I get older, I've just appreciated how narrow my view of what Nigeria is. I can speak personally just from my family home. When they speak about Nigeria, mostly they're talking about like middle class people who've gone to university. 99% of them are Yoruba people, but that's not really a fair representation. It's not a representation of Nigeria at all. Because of that, it's like, as I'm now starting to question things and question when people are talking about Nigerians, what are they talking about? I've realised that no, within Nigeria, I'm specifically Yoruba. I don't understand the word of Igbo. I don't know a single word in Hausa. Now saying, oh, I'm Nigerian, well, really, when I'm in Nigeria, I don't leave Yoruba land. I've never been outside Yoruba land, so it's more appropriate to say I'm Yoruba. The same way it would be more appropriate to say, instead of saying I'm British, to say I'm from Scotland or I'm from England or I'm from Wales or whatever. It's just part of growing up, I'd say. I think at a particular point in time, I just got quite interested in Yoruba history. Growing up here, you don't really learn about African history. All we do is black history, and black history isn't really black history, it's just the history of slavery. So I was just curious, I wanted to learn, and I realised if I type in the history of Nigeria, it's not really going to tell me about where I'm from or how my culture developed the way it is and so on and so forth. In general, Yoruba has a much better frame of reference than just saying Nigerian, because they might be talking about Igbo people, or they might be talking about Northerners and what they did, and that's not really what I'm looking for. I think in growing into that, when I got kind of interested in history, pre-colonial history I should say, that's when the affinity to being Yoruba probably grew a bit more, just because it's a much better frame of reference. I feel like a bit of a victim, and it's so annoying. What I mean by that is, obviously, like I said, I've grown up in London, and over here we've got a real sort of perception of the aggressors, the people that might rob you, the people that might this, that and the other. And then you go from that to Nigeria, where it's like, oh, that guy's British, that means we can rip him off. Or, oh, that guy's British, that means we can rob him, or we can kidnap him, or we can da-da-da-da-da. It's really difficult to adjust your mentality to one of being perceived as a threat to being perceived as a victim. The other thing that's interesting is, because of where my mum's family is from in particular, when I go back to Nigeria, I'm one of those middle class Nigerians. So I just mentioned how I saw the emir of all these places. It's because my cousin-in-law is a prince in Ogunlusi. So I'm living the world of the middle class in Nigeria, whereas here I'd feel like I'm more living the world of the lower middle class or working class type thing. So it's quite straight. For me, that's almost the biggest thing, that perception change. And then also it's just different. Like over here, you're black. In Nigeria, you're just you might be Yoruba, if you're lucky, type of thing. One of my more recent journeys to Nigeria, my cousin bought like a pizza to eat the night before. So we ate it and there were like 2 slices left, and he was like to me, in the morning when I wake up, I should go down and tell Jane, the house girl, what I want to eat, and she'll cook it for me. I'm not familiar with that. Like, I grew up in London, there's no one to cook me my food, let alone go up to an adult and say, I want X. And that person just goes off and makes it for you. Like, that's a foreign concept to me. Literally, I couldn't do it. And that's kind of what I mean about that mentality change. Or like, when I'm walking around with people speak with a real sense of authority. I've noticed a lot of the Nigerians I meet in Nigeria speak with a real sense of authority because they're part of an upper class. It's just a lot of culture that I'm not used to. I would say like the culture of giving is something that I can never really get. Like, I find it very frustrating that people come up to me and ask me for money, at a wedding or something. That's a very British way of thinking. Unless I'm a beggar on the street, I can't go up to someone and ask them for money. In Nigeria, that's more than acceptable. And stuff like that, it really like, it's difficult to deal with not difficult to deal with, but it's hard to really translate that as a British person, because it's like, I'm not rich. Like, I'm not a rich person. So when I'm out in Nigeria, it's like to be treated like a rich person, people expecting you to just hand them £10. Like, why would I hand a stranger £10? The mentality is just very, very, very different, and that takes a lot to adjust to and a lot to get used to. And because of that, I'd say definitely I feel a lot more at home, a lot more comfortable in the UK. Okay.